The Ocean of Theosophy by William Quan Judge. Published in 1893. Chapter 4. Septenary Constitution of Man. Respecting the nature of man, there are two ideas current in the religious circles of Christendom. One is the teaching and the other the common acceptation of it. The first is not secret, to be sure, in the Church, but it is so seldom dwelt upon in the hearing of the laity as to be almost arcane for the ordinary person. Nearly everyone says he has a soul and a body, and there it ends. What the soul is, and whether it is the real person or whether it has any powers of its own, are not inquired into, the preachers usually confining themselves to its salvation or damnation. And by thus talking of it as something different from oneself, the people have acquired an underlying notion that they are not souls because the soul may be lost by them. From this has come about a tendency to materialism, causing men to pay more attention to the body than to the soul, the latter being left to the tender mercies of the priest of the Roman Catholics, and among dissenters the care of it is most frequently put off to the dying day. But when the true teaching is known, it will be seen that the care of the soul, which is the self, is a vital matter requiring attention every day, and not to be deferred without grievous injury resulting to the whole man, both soul and body. The Christian teaching, supported by St. Paul, since upon him, in fact, dogmatic Christianity rests, is that man is composed of body, soul, and spirit. This is the threefold constitution of man, believed by the theologians but kept in the background because its examination might result in the readoption of views once orthodox but now heretical. For when we thus place soul between spirit and body, we come very close to the necessity for looking into the question of the soul's responsibility, since mere body can have no responsibility. And in order to make the soul responsible for the acts performed, we must assume that it has powers and functions. From this it is easy to take the position that the soul may be rational or irrational, as the Greeks sometimes thought, and then there is but a step to further theosophical propositions. This threefold scheme of the nature of man contains, in fact, the theosophical teaching of his sevenfold constitution, because the four other divisions missing from the category can be found in the powers and functions of body and soul, as I shall attempt to show later on. This conviction that man is a septenary and not merely a duad, was held long ago and very plainly taught to everyone with accompanying demonstrations, but like other philosophical tenets it disappeared from sight, because gradually withdrawn at the time when in the east of Europe morals were degenerating and before materialism had gained full sway in company with skepticism, its twin. Upon its withdrawal the present dogma of body, soul, spirit, was left to Christendom. The reason for that concealment and its rejuvenescence in this century is well put by H. P. Blavatsky in The Secret Doctrine. In answer to the statement, we cannot understand how any danger could arise from the revelation of such a purely philosophical doctrine as the evolution of the planetary chain, she says. The danger was this: doctrines such as the planetary chain or the seven races at once give a clue to the sevenfold nature of man, for each principle is correlated to a plane, a planet, and a race, and the human principles are, on every plane, correlated to the sevenfold occult forces, those of the higher planes being of tremendous occult power, the abuse of which would cause incalculable evil to humanity. A clue which is, perhaps, no clue to the present generation, especially the Westerns, protected as they are by their very blindness and ignorant materialistic disbelief in the occult, but a clue which would, nevertheless, be very real in the early centuries of the Christian era, to people fully convinced of the reality of occultism and entering a cycle of degradation which made them ripe for abuse of occult powers and sorcery of the worst description. Mr. A. P. Sinnett, at one time an official in the government of India, first outlined in this century the real nature of man in his book Esoteric Buddhism, which was made up from information conveyed to him by H.P. Blavatsky directly from the Great Lodge of Initiates to which reference has been made. And in thus placing the old doctrine before Western civilization, he conferred a great benefit on his generation and helped considerably the cause of Theosophy. His classification was: 1. The body rupa. 2. Vitality prana jiva. 3. Astral body linga sarira. 4. Animal soul karma rupa. 5. Human soul manas. 6. Spiritual soul buddhi. 7. Spirit atma. The words in italics being equivalents in the Sanskrit language adopted by him for the English terms. This classification stands to this day for all practical purposes, but it is capable of modification and extension. For instance, a later arrangement which places astral body second instead of third in the category does not substantially alter it. It at once gives an idea of what man is, very different from the vague description by the words body and soul, and also boldly challenges the materialistic conception that mind is the product of brain, a portion of the body. No claim is made that these principles were hitherto unknown, for they were all understood in various ways not only by their Hindus but by many Europeans. Yet the compact presentation of the sevenfold constitution of man in intimate connection with the septenary constitution of a chain of globes through which the being evolves, had not been given out. The French Abbé, Eliphas Levi, wrote about the astral realm and the astral body, but evidently had no knowledge of the remainder of the doctrine, and while the Hindus possessed the other terms in their language and philosophy, they did not use a septenary classification, but depended chiefly on a fourfold one and certainly concealed, if they knew of it, the doctrine of a chain of 7 globes including our earth. Indeed, a learned Hindu, Subbaro, now deceased, asserted that they knew of a sevenfold classification, but that it had not been and would not be given out. Considering these constituents in another manner, we would say that the lower man is a composite being, but in his real nature is a unity, or a mortal being, comprising a trinity of spirit, discernment, and mind which requires 4 lower mortal instruments or vehicles through which to work in matter and obtain experience from nature. This trinity is that called Atma Buddhi Manas in Sanskrit, difficult terms to render in English. Atma is spirit, Buddhi is the highest power of intellection, that which discerns and judges, and manas is mind. This threefold collection is the real man, and beyond doubt the doctrine is the origin of the theological one of the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. The 4 lower instruments or vehicles are shown in this table. 1 real man Atma. 2 Buddhi. 3 manas. 4 lower vehicles the passions and desires. 5 life principle. 6 astral body. 7 physical body. These 4 lower material constituents are transitory and subject to disintegration in themselves as well as to separation from each other. When the hour arrives for their separation to begin, the combination can no longer be kept up. The physical body dies, the atoms of which each of the 4 is composed begin to separate from each other, and the whole collection being disjointed is no longer fit for one as an instrument for the real man. This is what is called death among us mortals, but it is not death for the real man because he is deathless, persistent, immortal. He is therefore called the Triad, or indestructible Trinity, while they are known as the Quaternary or Mortal 4. This quaternary or lower man is a product of cosmic or physical laws and substance. It has been evolved during a lapse of ages, like any other physical thing, from cosmic substance, and is therefore subject to physical, physiological, and psychical laws which govern the race of man as a whole. Hence its period of possible continuance can be calculated just as the limit of tensile strain among the metals used in bridge building can be deduced by the engineer. Any one collection in the form of man made up of these constituents is therefore limited in duration by the laws of the evolutionary period in which it exists. Just now, that is generally 70 to 100 years, but its possible duration is longer. Thus there are in history instances where ordinary persons have lived to be 200 years of age, and by a knowledge of the occult laws of nature the possible limit of duration may be extended nearly to 400 years. The visible physical man is brain, nerves, blood, bones, lymph, muscles, organs of sensation and action, and skin. The unseen physical man is astral body, passions, and desires, life principle, called prana or jiva. It will be seen that the physical part of our nature is thus extended to a second department which, though invisible to the physical eye, is nevertheless material and subject to decay. Because people in general have been in the habit of admitting to be real only what they can see with the physical eye, they have at last come to suppose that the unseen is neither real nor material. But they forgot that even on the earth plane noxious gases are invisible though real and powerfully material, and that water may exist in the air held suspended and invisible until conditions alter and cause its precipitation. Let us recapitulate before going into details. The real man is the trinity of Atma Buddhi Manas, or spirit and mind, and he uses certain agents and instruments to get in touch with nature in order to know himself. These instruments and agents are found in the lower four, or the quaternary, each principle in which category is of itself an instrument for the particular experience belonging to its own field, the body being the lowest, least important, and most transitory of the whole series. For when we arrive at the body on the way down from the higher mind, it can be shown that all its organs are in themselves senseless and useless when deprived of the man within. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smelling do not pertain to the body but to the second unseen physical man, the real organs for the exercise of those powers being in the astral body, and those in the physical body being but the mechanical outer instruments for making the coordination between nature and the real organs inside.